There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit ComicShopLocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey everybody, happy Friday. I hope you're all doing well. As we're getting closer into the holidays, we're gonna have a little bit of a different show tonight. I want to talk a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, about George Perez. I know we have our artwork here tonight, and we will talk about it. Stevie B, Jeff Wedding, Wolf HNF, thanks for being here. Really appreciate the support. Before we go into it, I just want to say Bill Cox sent the news today that his brother passed away. So let's keep our thoughts and prayers with Bill and his family. Losing a family member is never easy. And having lost my father 3 years ago, losing them in the holidays somehow makes it worse. So some people may not like the somber approach of tonight, but, hearing the news about George hit me hard, hit a lot of people hard. Shows you how loved he is. Me hit me a little harder because my dad passed away from pancreatic cancer 3 years ago, just about at this time. George, as odd as it might be to say, is fortunate that they caught it now so that he can spend as much quality time with Carol as he can. So, sorry that this isn't our normal thing. I do want to talk about George a little because how much he's meant to me. Anybody's willing to chime in to add in your thoughts, your feelings. But I think the industry is far, far better that he's been here. And I don't know if Kyle wants to chime in and be a part of this a little bit. He's open to if he wants to, and obviously doesn't have to. Samuel, hey, how you doing, man? Let's see. Yeah, Bill is an amazing person. Dwayne's a pain. Yeah, it sucks. There's no other way to say it. It just sucks. So I wanted to talk a little bit about George again. For me, Crisis on Infinite Earths is probably my favorite title of all time. I've got this book in so many different formats. I remember the Absolute Edition when it came out. It's funny, it came out about a little bit more than 10 years after the series ended. It's just one of the greatest series of all time. And just remember this incredible wraparound cover by George and by Alex Ross. Nobody could have laid out this many characters and made them look this great like George. And nobody could have enhanced it and added their own flavor, but still kept all of George in there like Alex. I did put on a Facebook post. Hearing the news about George made me feel like that. And I thought I would bring my Crisis 8 pages in to show people some of them. Maybe go in reverse. Oh, there you go. Kyle has them there. So, you know, Wolf at HNF, please feel free to email me. Yeah, you can email Rex and you can email me too. You can CC me. You've got my email. They should have gone out at maybe the post office. Just everything's slow right now. So, but we will look into it for you, man. We will look into it, you know?
So, yeah, absolutely. So I thought, Nick, one of the best ways to maybe do this would just be to kind of go like this.
Yeah.
And just throw some pages up for people to look at, and just to we could just kind of talk about the stuff, you know. This isn't normally how we do things, you know. Normally you and I are, oh my God, look at that thing. And it's not kind of the mood right now. And I hope people understand that, you know, what we're dealing with, like, you know, we both have our jobs to do, but our jobs are so heavily impacted by George and so many of the great legends in the industry. So when news like this breaks, it, you know, it kind of throws a whole, not a wrench, that's the wrong word, but it kind of just,
look, it just affects us.
Just makes you appreciate it a little harder.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, you know, the one thing I said is that it's weird saying fortunate, but George is fortunate that he caught it earlier and he's getting time to do things his way and spending time with Carol. Every time I've met George, the way he talks about Carol, his eyes just light up. And sorry, guys, not the usual me tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Crisis. I won't be looking at the camera because I need to look at what Kyle's putting up.
Right. Well, I mean, the second page or third page you sent me had this beautiful dark side.
I've always made the joke that dark side single page back then, today would be a full issue.
It's true. Like, and they were cramming so much work in to, you know, a three panels across the top that today would be a whole page, you know. Just it's one of those kind of interesting things to think about, the way art has changed, and the way, really, when you think about George, he bridged the gap from the, you know, the golden age great masters and the, you know, guys, and all the
like way to the Silver Age and
right,
all the way to the Silver Age and going into the Bronze. I mean, he and John Byrne were that next step after Neil Adams and Jim Steranko. They really they were two of the creators that made the comics industry more exciting. And they were like a yin and yang, Marvin, George, and Claremont and Byrne, you know, two at Marvel, two at DC, just really made the industry grow. So,
like I said, but you don't get from John Romita Sr. and Shelley Moldov and those guys to Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane and, you know, the more modern style of art we see today, without guys like Neil Adams and George Perez and you know, some of the others of their contemporaries.
Stay here for 2 seconds if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
This, when the Absolute Crisis first came out, I'll tell a story real quick. Some people may have heard it, some people may not have. George and Marv and Alex flew in one day to sign copies of Absolute Crisis. And a few days later, Jerry Ordway, Mike DiCarlo, and Dick Giordano took the train down from Connecticut to sign copies of Absolute Crisis. We couldn't make it work at the same time. Oh, that's right, Michael. You were there. You were there for a good part of it.
It's just ironic that Mike brings this up as you start to tell the story.
Yeah. So, the reason why I want to stay on this page is because I was telling Marvin George, I'm not trying to be gushing just to gush. Crisis really is my all-time favorite series. And I'm explaining to them why I think it's so great. And, Supergirl in issue 7 died a hero's death battling and saving Kal-El, I was like, but Barry died alone, a real hero's death. And alone, beaten, overcame the odds. And Marv was cracking up. Just cracks me up. And George was about to say something, and Marv goes, kind of shushes him and says, you should really tell Jerry that story when he comes down. I was like, why? I was like, and they just said, you should tell Jerry. And George had that nice smile, that nice smile he always has. And, a couple days later, laughing and crying at the same time is weird. I tell Jerry and Dick and Mike, and Jerry's sitting there, standing there stoic, like, oh, really? Oh, you really love the Flash, so you're the biggest Flash fan in the world. I said, well, I'm the biggest Barry Allen Flash fan in the world. I'm cutting out a lot of the story because I'm sure people get bored if we just talk about this. And Mike DiCarlo's cracking up. And Dick kind of gives like that little kick that you give somebody, and he goes, tell the kid. He should know. And Jerry goes, well, you know how when it comes to art, pencilers keep 2/3 and inkers keep 1/3? I said, yeah. And my mind is kind of racing, like not knowing where this is going, but oh my God, praying almost. And he said, well, Crisis number 7 was oversized. So George kept that and I kept Crisis 8. My jaw just dropped. And Jerry being really nice. Oh, great. One of these days, I will remember to turn my phone off when I go in the air. So Jerry being a really nice guy said, I've got the complete issue. And if I ever break it up to sell it, I'll send you a page. And that's a story for later. And, it was just, but that time, like Michael said, boxing and unboxing. And, my first memory of George, my very first. So, like I said, when I heard the news, I felt like the specter right there. I mean, again, I'm really happy that George has the time that he has, having lost my dad like in 3 weeks. That was hard. Yeah, George kind of is like that older brother that you love, that cousin that's always great. And first time I met George, it's probably 13 years old, Creation Convention in Philly. And probably Doctor Who creation convention, right? And walked up to him, just wide-eyed kid, loved this guy's work, Justice League and some Avengers, and just seeing all the characters he could draw. And Teen Titans, always loved the way he drew Wally West and Robin and everybody. And asked him if he would help me with the comic. And never said something like, "Oh, I got to get to my table. Oh, I have a lunch. Oh, I've got something to do. Oh, I've got to meet somebody. Or I can't listen to anybody's stories." He said, "I would love to help you," something like that. But here's the thing. If you tell me your idea, when you're, you never post all of it. And if 1 year down the line, one day down the line, doesn't matter how many years from now it is, I use something that even you think is part of the story you pitched me, you'll be mad at me. And I wouldn't want you mad at me. Like I said, class act. Show some art. I'm going to be right back. I need to get a tissue.
All right. So, help if I turn my camera on. But so Nick sent me a whole bunch of this Perez art to look at. And there are some pages where let me find one here. Okay, so this spread here where I can see the colored product, the final book in my head. As I'm looking at it, I'm like, I know exactly what those colors look like, exactly what those finalized pages look like. This piece right here, with the tombstone in it. Like, I don't know if anybody else has pages like this in their life where it's just like, I know this image backwards, forwards, and upside down, right? And there aren't that many artists that I can think of that have the number of people who would say, yeah, I've studied that picture. I've studied that piece for hours and hours and hours.
The funny thing about that cover is I'm a huge fan of JLA 171 and 172. It's one of my favorite JLA stories. And it's the issue where they're on the satellite and Mr. Terrific gets killed. And they're trying to find out who killed Mr. Terrific. And, Batman's doing this detective work, and it kind of looks like it could have been Power Girl or whoever. And it ended up being Jay Garrick, because the Spirit King had taken over to kill Mr. Terrific. And I reread that story about 2 years ago and realized how not good it was. The memory of it, it's kind of like Speed Racer. It's one of those, I love the JSA crossovers, and I loved this as a kid, but I think I loved it because Jay Garrick was one of the main characters. I've always wanted a page from that. And Spencer Beck, who represented Dick Giordano, when he found out how much I loved it, goes, I actually sold the cover. I was like, yeah, I kind of figured. You don't need to rub it in. When this came up and available for sale, since I've never seen a page from those two issues, and the covers have, try getting a Dick Dillon cover anywhere. This cover just, it sang to me, Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yeah. No, George was wonderful. I'll add something about George that you don't think about much, but the same way he can draw so many characters into a page of art, is the same way he can spend time talking to every fan that's at a convention. So, yeah, I know that people are probably bored watching this, and I apologize. Just, oh, I love that 2-page spread. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is one of those. This is another one of those ones that, like, I don't know if you're out there watching and you can't see this in the book in front of you, like the finalized product. Like, I don't think we're. I think we're very different people in that regard.
Yeah. Well, crisis hit a lot of people, and it led to so many different series after that. I remember George telling me the Wonder Woman story. He said that he was talking to Frank Miller or John Byrne. I can't remember who. You know what? I want to give a couple of shout outs real quick. Speaking of Mike Lovitz, I only have that Green Lantern cover because after asking Mike about it for a few years, he finally sold it to me. And I love the way Adam Strange is inset there. If you go back a few slides to the JLA, that's a great Teen Titans page. I love that from Volume 2. A little bit more. That JLA page right there with Adam Strange and everything. I mean, that would be like a 6-page interlude today as opposed to a 1-page recap. And I was actually really lucky to get that. I always loved that page. And Steve Donnelly of Cool Lines had it at San Diego Comic-Con. And I was able to pick it up, this and a few more pages from him. So I'm going to try not to be a downer moving forward about George and talk a little bit about his art. But so anyway, we can. Oh man! So
this
Thanos.
This Thanos. Oh my God!
Yeah, that's another recreation. That's a recreation I picked up from Spencer. That was pretty cool. I love JLA 195 to 197. I think that may be my favorite JLA JSA crossover. And this page is great, but there's one page that I love more than any other. And Kyle's got a few pages interspersed here and there. We'll get to it. Look at that page with Signal Man coming out. And a lot of these pages I was lucky to get from Mike Lovitz as well. I mean, Mike probably is the biggest George Perez fan. That page. So Mike probably is the biggest George Perez fan out there. And he collected George's art for decades. But that page, I will always remember when Signal Man is talking to Ragdoll and saying, "Are we really going to be taking orders from a monkey?" Something like that. I can't remember it exactly. And Ragdoll says, was it Ragdoll or Ragman? I can't even remember. And he says something like, "Quiet fool. This is the Ultra Humanite. His intellect matches that of, or maybe greater than, Alexi Luthor's." And, there's a name you haven't heard in forever, Alexi Luthor. And, it shows the Ultra Humanite, how he's taken over other people's bodies over the decades. And it's just a great page that was always burned in my mind, how much I love it. And the character is so cool. He ended up in All-Star Squadron. Jerry Ordway did some beautiful work with it. And, Jerry's the nicest guy in the world. One day I'll tell the story about how fortunate I was thanks to Jerry. You wouldn't have Golden Age by James Robinson and Paul Smith if it wasn't for Ultra Humanite coming back. That JLA 202 cover, that's actually one of my favorite covers. That's also one that Michael was gracious enough to sell to me. The JLA 217 recreation, George, this is how generous the guy is. George could probably sit there and do recreations till the cows come home and make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And that's no exaggeration. He can do recreations day in, day out, and there will be people buying them. You know, he could put out a list and say, what cover do you want recreated? What scene do you want recreated? And I know people would put down crazy money for it. I mean, there's just, the man is so fantastic. But what he does once a year is he'll do a piece of art, a recreation or something, and he will add to it. So George one year drew this JLA 217 recreation. And I don't know if you can find it, Kyle, the original, but the original had far fewer characters. Not far fewer characters, had fewer characters. And George added other characters that he felt should be on it. He sold it to raise money for Saved Whiskers Rescue. And man, I wanted to put it in auction. Well, George wanted to put it in auction. And I said to Spencer, just ask George what price he wants to see this at. I'll donate the money to Saved Whiskers because I love this cover. When we get to the Crisis page with Guy Gardner, I'll mention my one disappointment with Crisis. Only one. But where we? Oh, yeah, the JLA 184, 185 pages. Again, look at all that. I mean, Dick Dillon's one of my all-time favorite artists, and it's so wacky that George was at Marvel at the time, and I guess not as appreciated by Shooter at Marvel. And I guess he was doing Teen Titans. I'm trying to remember the story. And Dick Dillon passed away. And when Dick Dillon passed away, he took the JLA as well, and they started that issue over from scratch. I think Dick was only a few pages in. And yeah, so anyway, just really, really fortunate. Let's see, Pure Gus. Did you see my? I did not see it, sir, but I will. What else do we got? Is that?
I love this bottom panel. Scream. Like just the use of the, outside of the 66 Batman, I think George was is one of the greatest users of sound words.
Yeah.
Like every title you read of every work he's done has got one of these kind of big call outs where you can just hear it in your head.
John Workman's another creator who does a great job. He worked well with Walt Simonson and Howard Chaykin and really added a lot. Oh man, yeah, the JLA 192, 193 with T.O. Morrow. I love that. Some great stuff here. Just beautiful art. Oh man, that I got that from Kevin Brogan, the Justice Society cover, and it's really we did a trade. I had a Dick Dillon splash that he really wanted a JSA cover splash page, and I don't know if you know Kevin Brogan. You might know him. He's a really great guy. Volunteers for the Hero Initiative, just there at conventions, putting the buckets on creators' tables, collecting the buckets for the Hero Initiative. And, he's a really smart and well-off person. You wouldn't think somebody like him would be a volunteer. And he's so generous. And when he wanted the Dick Dillon splash, I agreed to it partially because of how much it meant to him. And I have some Dick Dillon art, so I felt fortunate. And so I told him, find something that I would be happy with, and I'll trade you. And, this was via email. And he said, how about this JSA cover? I said, yeah, I think I'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
It's an homage to the All-Star Comics cover. And like I said, sorry, I'm looking at the board just seeing if anybody needs anything. Stephen Butler. Yeah, Stephen does a great job. What else we got?
Let's switch back over to this.
So I guess we're gonna take a little bit before. Like I was saying, I love the way he drew Wally West and Kid Flash. And when this Who's Who page came up, I mean, holy, is that the ultimate Kid Flash drawing? It's just
I love how it just sound like you can see it and you can hear it going shh.
Yeah.
Like, you can just hear the movement.
Well, I mean, and look at the after images. I mean, Jesus. That is so beautiful. I think we're really lucky that we get to talk about George while he's still with us. That's the Black Widow Marvel fanfare. I always loved that issue. I thought it was great. And I think it was done years before then. It was supposed to be for something else, and it ended up being here. And then the Marvel Tales Spider-Man. I mean, this might be the only time outside of, I think George might have inked some trade paperback covers of Iran Friends, but this is one of the few Spider-Man covers that George has drawn on his own. And I think he did 3 Marvel Tales covers, and it's with Hobgoblin. And it's just, so somebody was once saying to me, and I'm not trying to be mean when I say this, even though they were serious when they said this. And I'm going to, they were like, wow, Hobgoblin's really small. Was it worth getting? Yeah. It's George Perez. Spider-Man. Hobgoblin. Yeah, it was worth getting. Who cares if Hobgoblin is small? It's beautiful. So, let's move on to the next image. Probably, sorry if anybody's bored.
This is this 2-page spread with the connecting middle panel. That's this weird kind of splash.
Yeah.
Like, just the layout of this is a crazy.
Oh, it's
undertaking.
Insane. And that's also one that I was fortunate to do a deal with Mike Lovitz. He was getting another 2-page spread by George. So he was willing to let this go because he was getting something else that was a favorite of his. It just rocks. I mean, it is just beautiful. Besides the Batman in the middle, I mean, even looking at Zatanna there with the, just every little detail on that is fantastic.
Hawkman's wings, like, they're just perfect.
Oh no, Hawkman's wings, Green Lantern in the air. I mean, every aspect of it. Green Lantern in the bottom right. God, it's beautiful.
All right.
Oh, talk about right place, right time. I was talking to Mike Berkey one night, and out of the blue, we're talking about the Teen Titans page right there. And he's like, I got some Teen Titans pages in. You want to look at some of them? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll look at them. And this Teen Titans page was one of them. And that page is seared in my mind when we found out. And looking at it now, it's kind of creepy. But like Terra was leading on Gar and infiltrated the Titans, and And not that one, the other one. And
The other page?
infiltrated the Titans. And then you see that page with her and Deathstroke. And I think I'm going by memory, Deathstroke. Heel turn by Terra. That's right, Marcus. Deathstroke is, I think he said something like, betrayal or something won't feel the same when it happens. And, she's sitting there like the opposite of the cute little girl that you saw, like with the makeup and everything. And it's just, being, what was I, 15, 16, reading that. And you never saw betrayal like that in the comics. I mean, you had Phoenix Saga with Mastermind messing with Jean Grey's mind, and everything that happened there, manipulation. But this kind of swerve, betrayal, this was the first time I remember reading something like this. And it was just so well done in so relatively few issues. But Marvin George just did it great. And I think George actually inked this page by himself. Stevie B, I don't know who George would say is his favorite inker. I'm sure different years, maybe he had different favorites. Obviously, Romeo just killed it on him. This Teen Titans cover is just beautiful. It was to the first archives, and it's just so great. I mean, the big difference here, I'm going to have to look closely. When you get to be my age, it's hard to see. The big difference on this one is usually you'll see Robin in the front on the floor, not in the air. But George did something different here, and it's George, so it worked.
Yep.
So, okay. These are thanks to Michael Finn. Now, I so remember the Deluxe Comics Thunder Agents coming out. God, I must have been 15 or 16. I can't remember. And they were $2 each. And it's like, no, comics are 65 cents, 60 cents, 75 cents, whatever they were. But these Perez covers were just drop dead gorgeous. And no, wait a minute, not Michael Finn. I'm sorry. This was Steve Morger who had them, and he sold them to me. And Steve just was really gracious about it. He knew how much I love them. And Steve Morger sold these to me. And we did a deal. And he also sold me this, which I love. And this page is so freaking great as well. I mean, George's Thunder Agents, I don't know how many people remember it, but they were out of this world. Yeah, it was Morger, Michael. I corrected myself. I apologize. It was the Thunder Agents 4 that Finn had, and I actually won that in the Heritage auction. So, yes, this was Steve Morger. And I have to tell you guys, Steve Morger is Frank Cho's agent and had big WowCon with Bill Cox and is one of the nicest guys in the hobby. I mean, fortunately, almost everybody is fantastic in this hobby, and Steve's just one of them. And he knew how much I love these, and we did a deal that was fair for both of us. And I'm sure he could have held on to them and waited for them to be worth more, but it just worked. What else we got?
Well, then you had some internal pages from the Thunder Agents as well.
Yep. Those are the only 2 pages that I have that are the interior pages. Yep.
And then this is the last piece you sent me.
That was one I was okay. So this is where we get to say, not that he would have known, but that's another piece that Michael Lovitz had. And I didn't know he had it. And I saw it in the Comic Link auction. And I'm telling him how I'm going after this. I was like, it's just so well executed. It's Janet Van Dyne and one of her wasp costumes, and it's different and it's cool. And Michael goes, I wish I would have known. I would have sold it to you before I put it in the auction. I think Michael did a little bit better with it going in the auction. So
that was. So this is the last piece you sent me.
Oh, Richard Ship. All right, thanks.
Yep. Ship. If guys, if you have any billing questions or anything like that, normally, it's a kind of a different setting tonight. Feel free to reach out to the EXP on Facebook or the_EXP@yahoo.com, and I will give you direct links to these guys' emails so that you can get that stuff taken care of.
So if you pull back up that crisis page with Guy Gardner, we'll talk about the one thing that annoyed me about Crisis on Infinite Earths.
All right. Do you happen to remember the issue number, Nick? I'm loading these up by
hand. Issue 9. It was issue 9, page 3. Not that I would remember off the top of my head.
All right. Crisis 9-3. I'm loading these up by hand so we can.
No, that's page 2. That's page 1. Page 1.
All right, that's labeled as page 3 in your notes here.
Oh, then it's page 4. Listen, I didn't have it perfect.
Let me see what I got here.
You can always just pull it up here.
Yeah, why don't you do that? I have a bunch of Crisis 8s. Is it 8-3?
No. 8 is all. Yeah. I was about to say Submariner is all Flash. So look at this page. Focus just on now. Crisis on Infinite Earths. The Guardians of the Galaxy. Green Lantern 40 with Golden Age and Silver Age Green Lantern. Starting the Big Bang. Hal Jordan is missing from Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yes, Jon Stewart's in there. He was fantastic. Guy Gardner's in there. Awesome. Not even Hal walking across the country and like a thought balloon. Like, ooh, I wish I still had my power ring. I mean, like nothing. That was so annoying to me. At 15, 16 years old, although not as annoying as Barry dying, that was more painful. It's funny, Marv, this was well before Rebirth. Marv had teased me. He's like, George and I might bring the Barry back one day. We have our plan. I was like, what is it? He's like, I can't tell you. Marv is a good showman too. Gotta love Marv. Those guys are a great team. Yeah, Dino, we were talking about Bill's brother's passing, and I asked everybody to keep Bill and his family in their thoughts and prayers. And like I said earlier, losing family is always hard, but losing them before the holidays just somehow seems worse. I mean, losing family can't get worse, but something about it just feels worse. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about that, and I know how to take a mood down, I really know how to take the mood down.
Well, and we've said it several times this week here on The Experience. So many of us are blessed to work in this industry and to have had access to people like George Perez. And, almost a year ago, you and Spencer Beck facilitated me meeting one of my heroes. And like, it's one of those things that we feel so incredibly fortunate to be here, that when news like this happens, when we get news like of George's illness, and we can't help but be completely affected by it. And it takes you a day or two to kind of come back around, and it takes you it's doing something like this, sitting around talking for an hour, kind of to get your legs back under you.
Yeah, I mean, right now doing the show with you, with the fans here, it's like family, talking about extended family. I actually have something else to do later, which is with people that wouldn't know me. So I'm going to have to suck it up and, be
So,
the normal me without all this.
do you just need some good dad jokes? Should we text Ron Shepard and get you some good dad jokes?
No. But I will say one other thing, something else. You and I were talking about a few pages last night when we were going over this, and something hit me last night. So there's this page right here where, issue 1, Earth 3, it's being destroyed, and you see powering right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the next, and he says, Ultraman says, then I guess this is it. And Powering says, Ultraman, what are you going to do? And this page is a tearjerker. And Ultraman says, what I've done all my life, fight to the end.
Yep.
And to me, it's poetic because my dad actually did kind of like George. I mean, he didn't have as long. My dad said to the doctors and to my mom, if I go under, don't resuscitate me. And he actually said to the doctors, he said, I'm not going to take any medication to extend my life. I've seen people do that and it tears apart the family. He said, I'll only take medication for any pain. And he said, get me the hell out of this hospital. He said, I want to die at home, not in the hospital. And
no, I really, the thing that struck me in the announcement, I guess, is that rather than saying I want to spend time with my family, which he obviously did and does, it was about he wants everybody to get a chance to get an autograph, get a picture, get a hug.
Yeah,
like, doesn't have to do that.
No,
but that just shows the kind of ambassador and the kind of person that George is. I met him one time thus far. Hopefully I will get a chance again. Praying for the time frame to be wrong and all of that kind of stuff. But I actually didn't intend to meet him when I met him. An indie creator friend of mine was hosting a panel that he was on, and I got my days mixed up, and I ran across the convention hall to go, talk to my friend, and I come just milliseconds away from running over these two people who are just kind of walking behind my friend. And like a ninja, my friend kind of swerves me out of the way, and I look up, and there stands George Perez and Marv Wolfman. And I turn to my buddy and I go, did I almost just run over George Perez? And he goes, yeah. And you're a lot bigger than he is. I go, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I just ran away ashamed. Like,
the amazing thing about George, every picture you see him in, he's smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Every single picture. I swear he was born with that smile.
Oh, yeah.
Like he came out smiling like that,
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to light up a room.
Oh, yeah.
He does. I'm not even sure he knows how to light up a room. He just lights up a room. And
the end of that story is I go over the next day to get my book signed by him and Marv. And Marv Wolfman goes, are you the guy who almost ran us down yesterday? And I go, yes.
No, it was the other guy wearing a hat with glasses with a beard and mustache.
Right.
Wasn't me.
Right. No.
It was the Earth.
Yes.
It was the Earth 2 Kyle.
And he goes, could you have imagined the story that would be on the front page of Bleeding Cool if you'd have run us down? And I'm going, I'm so sorry. And George just looks at me and goes, I could have took you. And just goes back to signing the book. And I'm like, you don't know me. You don't know anything about that. Like, but that moment just made me so happy that they were busting my chops about it.
The other thing, this is how rich this book is. There are things you don't even realize. So when you and I were talking about this and I was rereading issue 1, and I've been looking at the book all week. When you look at issue 1, this one scene, when you look at the way Power Ring is right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure I got Power Ring. Do you see how afraid he is?
Yeah.
And on the pages before, oh no, same page. No, page before. You have the Owl talking about how, they pillaged the earth and did everything to take advantage, and now they're fighting for it. But the one thing that you realize here, oh no, okay, so wait, I got to read this right. For years, we used our powers to make us the masters of Earth. Nothing could stop us, not even the Earth's sole hero, Luthor. And then you've got Ultraman saying it's everywhere, Power Ring. I used to revel in my powers, but I need them the most. They're useless. And you've got Power Ring looking so afraid right there, right? Really afraid. And then at the bottom, when he asks Ultraman, right before Ultraman flies into the antimatter.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Forever Evil with
yeah.
Jeff Johns and David Finch?
Oh, yeah.
I swear to God, that is Jeff Johns is an encyclopedia of the DC universe. He really is.
He is.
And
so,
I have to imagine Power Ring being afraid of the ring and everything came from this. So much came from this. So freaking much.
It's true. So
much came from Marvin George over the years. And George with anybody else. George, a lot of writers really. Okay, I'll tell a story about this cover real quick. So, this cover was in auction. This must have been 7 years ago. And, always be happy with what you have. Never be unhappy with what you don't have. And I got really sick the night of the auction. And Pam actually had to come get me and take me home. I was that sick at work. Hannah in the office said I should go to urgent care, but I asked Pam, just take me home. Let me see how I feel before I go to urgent care. And I missed it in the auction. Then lo and behold, days later, I found out Dinesh won it. And I sat there and thought to myself, all right, I blame being sick on not winning it, but if I went up against Dinesh, I probably still would have lost it. So at least it's in good hands.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've met so many great collectors since we started doing this show, and Dinesh is one of them. Like, he appreciates his art, on a level that really is admirable for all of us. And same with you, same with everybody that we've met. Like, so if you got to lose, he's a good guy to lose to, right?
Yeah. And especially when you realize, I wasn't going to outbid him.
Right.
And all it would have done was drive the price out. So auction house would have been happy. Seller would have been happier. But I probably still wouldn't have gotten it. But, it's just it's so fortunate that we have our childhoods here. And, I guess on some level, like I said, I'm really happy George is going to be able to spend as much time with Carol as possible. I've hardly ever seen anyone light up as much as George is always lit up and happy. He gets even happier when he talks about Carol. I rarely had a time with him where Carol hasn't come up in conversation. Matter of fact, it's funny. The antagonist in that Thunder Agent story, who now I can't remember. I can't believe it. If Michael Lovett's still here, please help me. She was modeled after Carol because Carol was a belly dancer, if I remember correctly. So it's like a 14-year-old kid. I'm learning about so much from this great guy. Again, as much as George can draw tons of characters in one scene, he can talk to tons of fans at one convention. No one can spend as much time with fans as George can. And I think that, to a degree, too, talking about George having as much time as he can with Carol, what you said earlier about him wanting to hug fans at a convention, it gives us a little bit more time to appreciate him and send him our heartfelt wishes while he's alive. So,
well, Nick, we've managed to talk through our whole hour. You were like, hey, I'm going to need you to take a break halfway through, and we just never stopped talking. So for those of you who have tuned in to join us, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this little, memorial that we've been doing. Like,
not a memorial, a
celebration.
A celebration.
A celebration. Yeah. It's hard to find the right words sometimes with this kind of stuff. But thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being around, and we will see you back next week.
Let's leave it with this. Let's definitely leave it with this. Keep those good thoughts and good vibes going for George. Let's pray that he still has a long time. He beats the odds. He should beat the odds. And again, let's also all keep Bill Cox and his family in our hearts and in our prayers. He lost his brother last night, and Bill was a champ. He is. He did his show last night, and the fans were there, and he knew he had to be there. But this is a hard time for him as well. So please keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers as well. I want to thank everybody for sitting through this. This is not what you tuned in for initially, and maybe I needed it more than I realized. Thank you, Kyle, for putting up with this, for looking through all the art to be ready tonight. And
this is the great thing about comics and the great thing about comic art, right? Is we get to have these. We can do this. It's we can sit together and appreciate it. There's very few fraternities like this where this kind of thing can happen. So I appreciate you sharing your art and sharing your memories, Nick. And again, come back next week, guys. If you tuned in this time for the first time, you're like, this is not what I signed up for. We understand. Come back next week. We've got some killer stuff that we've already got prepared, including some Sinister War stuff. Like, just tune in next week for some killer art, including from our friends, Ken Hazer and other things. So, and then stay tuned later on tonight for Nancy McCann. Nancy and I talked about George last night. I think she may have some of her own George Perez memories for that, for her show. So we will see
everybody who was fortunate enough to meet George, their lives were better for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. And when you it's the holidays, spend as much time with your family as you can. We all have a lot going on, but definitely make the most of it. It makes you think when this happens. So thank you all. Have a great one.
We'll see you guys next week.